You know that feeling when something in a relationship, maybe a really close one, just feels, well, off. Like your gut is telling you one thing, but what you're actually hearing is totally different. It creates this really weird tension.
Yeah, that gap, that kind of uncomfortable space between what someone's saying and how they're making you feel. That's really what we're digging into today, isn't it?
Exactly. We're taking a deep dive into the key ideas from No More Chains, How to Spot, Stop, and Survive Narcissistic Relationships by L. Robinson.
And L. Robinson, well, he's not just an author, he's also a speaker, and he founded the Church of Real Talk.
Right, which is all about healing, authenticity, empowerment, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and his work, this book, but also his Mic Drop Monday series, it consistently focuses on breaking those damaging patterns and finding yourself again. He really seems dedicated to helping people get back on solid ground.
He really does. No More Chains.
Yeah.
Fits right in with that whole mission, guiding people through healing and sort of reclaiming their lives after tough relationships.
Which is why we thought, this book was important to explore. We know a lot of you listening might be dealing with confusing relationship stuff.
Yeah, maybe something recent that has you second guessing, or maybe it's an old pattern you're trying to finally understand.
And look, our goal here isn't to give you like a clinical lecture.
No, definitely not.
It's more about pulling out those core insights from Robinson's work that might offer some clarity, without getting bogged down in jargon.
So where do we start? What's the big takeaway?
Well, probably the most powerful right off the bat message in No More Chains is Robinson's core statement. It's not you. It was never you.
Wow. Okay. Let's unpack that a little. It's not you.
Yeah.
That hits hard because I think in those confusing situations, the first place you look is usually inward, right? Like, what am I doing wrong?
Precisely. And Robinson's whole point is that this book is meant to help you recognize and then break free from those damaging patterns. It's about understanding that the problems in what he calls a narcissistic dynamic, they're not actually about your flaws.
Okay, so when he talks about No More Chains,
Yeah.
what kinds of things is he actually tackling? What are the specifics?
The book really gets into the lived experience of people recovering from emotionally abusive relationships. So that means understanding emotional abuse itself, but also recognizing and dealing with gaslighting.
Which is that manipulation where someone makes you doubt your own reality.
Exactly. Makes you question your sanity, your perception, and other kinds of control, too. He also digs into spotting toxic patterns that keep people stuck, and crucially, understanding and breaking trauma bonds.
Trauma bonds. Okay.
Yeah. And then, of course, the whole process of finding your sense of self again and starting that healing journey.
It sounds like he definitely has a specific person in mind when writing. Who would you say this book is really for?
Well, Robinson is pretty clear about it. It's for anyone who's recovering from a toxic relationship, or maybe you're in one right now, and just constantly questioning things, doubting your reality. He calls it a straight-talking, soul-centered survival guide. And that's important. It's not trying to be some dry, clinical textbook. It's meant to be supportive, written with empathy.
Like a guide from someone who gets it.
Exactly. Someone who understands what it feels like.
So thinking about that understanding, what are some of the key concepts Robinson really unpacks? The insights that are maybe most helpful for someone trying to figure things out?
Well, one of the first things, and it can be really insidious, is this idea of hidden abuse.
Hidden abuse. Okay.
What's interesting is how he points out that abuse isn't always, loud arguments or obvious mistreatment. It can be super subtle. It can exist even in relationships that look kind of perfect from the outside.
Right, which must be incredibly confusing for the person experiencing it, if there's no proof.
Exactly. That lack of obvious evidence leads to so much self-doubt. Think about constant little put-downs disguised as jokes.
Oh yeah, just kidding.
Right. Or always having your feelings dismiss you're too sensitive, or making a big deal out of nothing. That's often where that hidden abuse festers.
That makes so much sense, because without those big blow-ups, you really can start to think, maybe it is me, maybe I am imagining it.
And that ties right into another key thing: false apologies and emotional manipulation.
The non-apology apology.
Yeah. Robinson really breaks down why these are so damaging, how they keep people trapped in these cycles.
How so?
Well, these fake apologies, they give you just enough hope, a little temporary relief. It keeps the cycle going. It's like intermittent reinforcement, but in a really harmful way. It creates this strong emotional dependency.
It's not about real change then?
Not at all. They're usually just tactics. calculated moves to get back control and keep you invested in something that isn't healthy or reciprocal.
Right. It's like giving just enough breadcrumbs so you keep following the path, even though it leads nowhere good.
That's a great way to put it. And then there's understanding trauma bonding. This is huge.
Okay, explain that a bit more.
Robinson really gives clear explanations. It's that intense, unhealthy attachment that forms in these abusive situations. It's not logical. It's an emotional and even physiological response to those cycles of intense highs and lows.
So it feels really strong, even if it's harmful.
Incredibly strong and confusing. But importantly, he also gives guidance on how to start breaking those bonds without losing your empathy. It's about seeing the dynamic clearly without blaming yourself for the feelings that developed because of the abuse.
That's so important.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to heal by just becoming cold or cynical, right?
Absolutely not. And protecting yourself, a big part of that is setting healthy emotional boundaries. Robinson talks a lot about why they're essential.
And how to actually do it.
Yeah.
Because that can feel hard.
Yeah, he gives practical advice on how to set them without feeling like you have to build these massive walls and shut everyone out. It's about creating safety and respect for yourself, not total isolation.
So it's clear the book isn't just about pointing out the problems. It's offering a way forward. What does Robinson say about the healing process itself after someone starts to see these patterns?
He talks about what happens after what he calls the fog starts to lift. That initial confusion and disorientation fades a bit. And then the critical work begins, rebuilding self-trust. Because that's what gets eroded so badly when your reality is constantly questioned.
Trusting your own gut again.
Exactly. It's this gradual process of reconnecting with your intuition, validating your own experiences, even if someone tried to tell you they weren't real.
It really sounds like Robinson structured the book to be super supportive.
Yeah.
What kind of practical things does he include in the chapters?
Yeah, this is where the survival guide part really shines. Each chapter has these relatable fictional stories, vignettes he calls them, but they're based on real survivor experiences.
So you can see yourself in them.
Right. It helps you feel less alone, validates your experience. Then he has spot the sign sections.
Ooh, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, they break down common red flags and manipulative tactics. Makes it easier to actually identify them in your own life. It's like getting a decoder for confusing behavior.
That sounds incredibly helpful for someone in the thick of it.
Definitely. And building on that, he gives how to respond tips. So actual strategies you can think about using to regain some power and clarity in those tough moments.
So practical steps.
Practical steps.
Yeah.
And then there are also affirmations, journal prompts, other emotional tools in each chapter. Things to help you ground yourself and support your growth during what can be a really rough time.
It sounds like he's really walking alongside the reader, not just talking at them. And you mentioned his own experience plays a big role.
Oh, absolutely. He's very open about it. He says straight up, I wrote it from the trenches.
Wow.
He shares his own struggles with second-guessing himself, the whole difficult journey of rediscovering who he was outside of that relationship, and, making that incredibly hard choice to leave.
That kind of honesty must make a huge difference.
It adds so much authenticity. You feel like he knows. He understands the complexity because he lived it. It makes the whole message resonate so much more deeply.
Yeah, knowing the author has been there, that can be incredibly validating when you feel totally isolated, like a turning point almost.
Exactly. And Robinson is really clear about the book's purpose. It's not about revenge. It's not about just slapping labels on people.
What is it about then?
It's about freedom. Finding the truth of your experience, breaking those invisible chains that keep you stuck in unhealthy dynamics.
So the goal is personal liberation, understanding, not blame or bitterness.
Precisely. And the overall tone, the message throughout, is just incredibly empowering. He ends the foreword with this really strong, hopeful statement.
What does he say?
He says, "You're not alone, you're not crazy, and you sure as hell aren't broken. You are waking up. You are rising. You are healing. And most of all, you are free to say, no more chains."
Wow, that's powerful. A really hopeful note to land on. It sums up the whole spirit, doesn't it?
It really does. I think the main takeaway, the absolute core message from No More Chains, is that if you're caught in these difficult, unsettling relationship patterns, it's very likely not about your worth or your sanity or anything broken inside you. And that healing, finding freedom from those dynamics, it's absolutely possible.
And that's such a vital thing for anyone listening to hear, especially if they're recognizing some of this in their own lives. Just knowing you're not alone and there is a path forward.
Exactly. Understanding these dynamics, it's just so valuable for anyone wanting healthier connections and, a stronger sense of who they really are.
So maybe a question for everyone listening as you reflect on all this. What's one chain, maybe one pattern, or that unsettling feeling we talked about at the start that you might want to look at a little more closely in your own life?
Yeah, just starting that process, recognizing it. That's the first step towards breaking free.
Let's keep walking this path together, figuring things out.